Hey there, everyone. Daniel Lowry back with another installment in our Learning Python series. And we're going to do that by making hacky stuff, right? That is what we're building. We're kind of creating this brute force script to brute force our way past a web application authentication page. That is a mouthful of words. Just to remind you where we're at, is right here, right? We've got this login page. And ultimately, what I want to do is brute force this login and password. Yes, we know we've all already been there. We see that your credentials are right there staring us in the face, but we have to hit the I believe button, right? Just find it on your wherever and give it a good smack that we don't know what the username and password is to this web application. And if you're wondering what this is the BWAP, the purposefully buggy web application. It's extremely buggy. It's a buggy web app. It even has bugs on it. They're not playing around with the bug stuff. If you need this is just running in a virtual machine on my personal network. If you want to do the same thing and exactly follow what it is I'm doing, I'll put a link in the description below for you to be able to do that. And you can download this, spin it up in your VM, and catch up with us, get up to speed, as it were. But I want to be able to brute force my way into this, with like admin. Okay, that didn't work. How about root, that kind of thing. But I want to do it programmatically, and I'm using Python to make that happen. That's what the game is that we have been playing so far. And we've learned a lot about Python. We've done a few things, and it's all very contextual. That's the whole purpose of this series, is to kind of bring in some context behind some of those things we do, like creating variables, printing things to the screen, taking input from the user, and even making HTTP requests. And it's going to get fun today. I'm actually not really sure how this is going to go. Like I've said before, I'm kind of doing this as I go, and we'll see how it works. And hopefully, it all works very well, and you learn a thing or two. I have. It should be fun today. Right? We're going to have a good time. But I did want to kind of take a minute to point out today we are going to see why I tell people all the time when they ask me, should I learn scripting programming language? And I go, yes. Yes, I think you should. You don't have to, but I really think you should. It's a good idea. And the reason it's a good idea is because you learn a lot about the technologies that you're working with by learning how to automate processes and doing all the functional capabilities programmatically that you can do, working with APIs and things of that nature. It's really kind of cool to kind of get a glimpse of what happens under the hood when you deal with software or applications, or run a script and it does something for you, and try to figure out the logic. It's really good for developing your cognitive and logical capabilities and reasoning skills. So there's just so many really good reasons for doing this, and that's why I think that you should learn it. Not that you have to, but you should. And today I think is going to really point that out with what we see here. So let's get to it. And see what I'm talking about. So today, what we need to do is we need to take this lovely code that we have for our brute force app. If you watched the previous episode, this is what we left off on. We kind of refactored things, made it a little nicer. We've reduced the amount of code that we have, and it's very, very readable. But now we need to actually, I want to take us in the direction of learning a little bit more about using the requests module that is available for Python. And we've used it, right? There it is right there. We've got, well, first, actually, we started up here, right? Where we imported requests because we need to import it. Otherwise, it's not available to us. So we import that thing, and now we can start messing around with it. And you see this requests.get, open, close parentheses, and then there's something in there, which is a variable name, which we either take from a command line argument or we grab as input from the end user. Very straightforward. Hopefully you're following along, and I have faith that you are. Unfortunately for us, while this, yes, can grab a web page, it will not allow us to actually input a username and password because this is not the method that is being used here, right? Well, so when I put the word admin and I type the word password and I hit the button log in, which you see right there, that is actually being done by the post method of the HTTP post method, the verbs, methods, wherever you want to go with. That's what it's doing. And post is different than get. Post has data that goes along with it. I'm posting it to you. I'm giving it to this site. So when I give this, I fill out this login form and I say admin password and I hit that login button, it is going to give that information, going to wrap it up in some way and shovel it off to the server. And the server is going to bring it in and go, hey, I got a post request. I'm going to try to do something with it. If I understand all the stuff that's in this little packet, I might be able to make that work. And that's, of course, all done with the back end side of code and everything. And you're like, whoa, Daniel, I didn't come here to learn web technology. I'm not going to try to teach you web technology properly anyway, but you will learn about it, right? This is my whole point of my little spiel that I had at the beginning here just a few moments ago, is that if you want to use Python to do useful things for you, and maybe even cybersecurity related things, you it you got to be able to make it work with the thing you're trying to work with. Today we're working with web applications, so we need to know a little bit about web apps. We need to know how web things work, at least to some extent, at least some basics, some fundamentals. And we will pick up some today. So if you've never worked with web application before, you're not really checked out on HTTP and the methods or verbs or whatever you want to call them, that's cool. It's totally fine. You're going to see some new tools today. You're going to see some new things that don't have anything to do with Python per se, but we will need to do to be able to get the information we need to continue to build our application. Like I said, you get to peer under the hood of this thing and see what's going on. So let's do it. Okay. So if I've got this lovely little login page, and it is amazing. I mean, I see it and I almost weep. It's so beautiful. If I try to log in, I need to be able to see what that looks like at all, like anything. I know that it's a post, right? And you say, how do you know that, Daniel? Well, that's just from being around the block, but I can verify that in a couple of ways, honestly. We can use the dev tools or we can use a third-party tool. The dev tools are the things that are built into your browser. And I'm using Firefox here, but I also have this pulled up over here, and this is Brave, which is a Chromium-based browser. So basically Chrome is going on here. Okay, so let's start here with Firefox, which if you're running Kali, that is going to be the default install for many web apps, security professionals. Firefox is the way to fly. It is the thing that we use just because it has all the, I don't know, it just always has been. And I honestly don't know it's probably, what was it, Gas Monkey or something like that? There was these scripts that became available for Firefox and they got really popular and they were all security based. And I think that's just why this happens or why this has happened. But that's neither here nor there. There's your little history lesson for today, even though it was probably full of horrible holes. The real question is, how do I know this is a post request? If I do a Shift Control I, it brings up the developer tools. I got all sorts of stuff going on here. I got this inspector. I can see the source code of the page that we're looking at, right? And I can kind of drill down in. You can see that we have an extremely buggy web app, right? It's giving me the header information for BWeb. This is all the HTML code that renders this page usable. And then, of course, some other things around here. We've got this layout, some other stuff in the middle. I've kind of got it oversized, but that's okay. Really, all I'm looking to show you is that you can, by Shift Control I, if you're in Firefox, you can grab a hold of these tools and you can start to use them. You have the console, you have the debugger. There's lots of stuff that's going on here. You have network tabs, style editor, performance, memory. We also have storage, right? We got stuff going on in the storage area here. We've got accessibility. We've got application. All right. Today, what we're going to take a look at is the network side of things, right? And I can hit this reload button, reload the page. And it'll ask me, I'm going to bring this down a little bit because we got this lovely resend. So it's asking me, hey, do you want to resend all that stuff? Because it was a post request. There was data that went along with it. It's asking me, do you want to resend that data or do you want to cancel this? I do want to resend that data. So I'll hit resend and I can see that things happen. I see some status codes over here of 200 each. And I can see right here, method. And it is a post method. Now, of course, when I click on it, it brings up the information that was sent along the way, and there it is, right? It does say post right there. I can look down into this request. I can see what's going on. I can look at the cookies that were sent, which there were some that were sent along with it. Here is the request. I can see this in form data, or I can click this. Well, you probably can't see that behind my head. There's a raw button right here. I can click that. I can see this is the actual raw data that was sent along with the request right there. So no, we know it's a post request because I can see it right there. If we look at the data that's available, you can see that it says login, admin, password, password. Then we have this security level equals 0. We've got this form equals submit. Okay. So these are the elements that go along. And this is fairly straightforward, fairly easy to find those by hitting those dev tools. And then dev tools are your friend, right? Well, I like dev tools. Look at all the fun stuff we can do with that. I can spec all sorts of stuff. Look at source code. I can play around with the console and fire stuff off. Here's some HTML. Here's some JavaScript. Do stuff and see if it can handle it. I can make changes. I can have fun. Dev tools are fun. Not the only game in town. I did want to show you, of course, for the Chromium browser. I was unable to really easily and quickly see this information. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. Let's try a different way of getting there, though. I can't see my menu at the top of the screen, so we want to be able to do that. So I'm just going to hit Alt. Oh, it helps if I click there. Hit Alt. No. Control. No. Where? Oh, this is Chromium. Chromium-based Brave. Okay, Daniel, you're silly, right? And what I want to look for is the dev tools, and you'll find them in here. Where are they hiding that thing? Print. More tools. Let me get this full screened here. So you got this more tools option. And then from here, we can start looking at, there it is, developer tools. And it is Shift Control I here if you need that shortcut. It's right there, Shift Control I. Can get me there. I'm just going to click it. It brings it out. Yes, I know it's tiny. But you'll see there is also a network tab right there. So you click that network tab, and you can click filter, or you can just make the request again. Let's see here. Import. No, that's not what we're looking for. Okay. Reload the page. I'm not super checked out on on Brave and Chromium. I typically use Firefox, but I'm just going to reload the page. I can see all this wondrousness. Now, I didn't actually make a post request here. I do need to do that. So I'm going to kind of move this out of our way. Go in here, make the post request, admin and password, and hit enter. And now over here, I should be able to find that actual, there it is right there, login.php. I think with here we can, yeah. So login.php, I do see that the method is post. You might not be seeing method like I do. If you don't, just right click on one of these headers, right click, and then find it and make sure it's checked. So if you don't see it, you want to make sure that method is checked off, and then you'll be able to see method. And once you find it, just look for that post. There it is. I can see it. Post. Okay. From there, you can kind of be able to do the exact same thing that we just saw and find that stuff. Just trying to help. I'm going to go back over here. All right. So now that we've got those two things squared away, that's good. We like it. We know how to do this. But that's kind of a lot. Like I said, you're going to learn a bit about a bit today. And yes, you can get in your dev tools, but maybe you want to more properly work in secure. Maybe you want to use a security tool that's for working with web applications specifically and doesn't care what browser you're using. You always get the same experience. Regardless, third-party tools are great for that. And of course, I'm thinking of something like BurpSuite. BurpSuite can help us do this exact same thing. So let's show you what's up. To get BurpSuite rocking and rolling, I'm going to close my dev tools. I need to, start BurpSuite. So I'm going to come over here. If I'm in Kali, I just have to go to the Kali icon and type in BurpSuite and fire it off. Won't take too long. I just never have clicked this. Do not show this again, but it's okay. If you see that, just click OK. And then you're going to want to click your next button and then start Burp right there. From there, and because we are using HTTP and not HTTPS, we don't need to deal with the certificate authority that BurpSuite has built into it. If you do need to make HTTP requests, you're going to need to do that, but that's not what this is about. The good news is we don't have to worry about that. You're golden. I know. You're feeling like, Daniel, you're just torrенting a bunch of information onto me. It's true. It's a lot of info. But this is like, if you're really interested in cybersecurity and you're really interested in being able to do things like web app penetration testing or web app security, getting handy with the OWASP top 10 and that kind of stuff. These are the kind of tools, and this is the information that you got to get familiar with, right? While this isn't a course about that necessarily, like I said, we've got to kind of move through these things because these are the bits and pieces we need so that we can put them in our Python code. We got to get that information so we can stick it in our Python code and make Python do the thing we want it to do. Okay? So it all works together. Trust me. Continue to follow me. Follow me down this long and winding road. Trust me, we'll get there. So now that we have BurpSuite up and running, we need to connect our browser to BurpSuite. A couple of ways in which you can do that. The old-fashioned manual way, which if you're in Firefox, you go to your settings. So click your little like 3 lines or whatever it is at the top right there, and then go down to settings, which you see there. And I just like to do this. It's got this lovely find business right here, and just type in proxy. That will take you to the network settings very quickly and hit settings. From there, by default, it is use the system proxy settings. So whatever the system is set up to do proxy-wise, it will do. Most likely by default, you don't have a proxy set up, so it's not going to do any proxying. But if you want to manual proxy, you click, of course, manual proxy configuration. Mine is filled out because I use this a lot. Yours probably isn't, but you'll want to do the same thing that you see here, which is 127.00.0. Let me back that up. For those of you listening at home, the HTTP proxy information that you're going to put in the box is 127.0.0.1. And then over here in the port box, you're going to put 8080. No spaces or anything like that, no periods, no nothing. It's just 8080. I want 8080. 8080. Yes. Trying to be as clear as possible. For you. I'm probably being as clear as mud, but that's cool. Hopefully we'll get it figured out. You can see, and if you can, that's what you're going to go with. So manual proxy configuration, and that's how you do it. You click OK. And now we're connected to BurpSuite. Any request that I make in my browser will now be shoveled over to BurpSuite, and BurpSuite will say, hey, cool, let me see that. And if I go to proxy and I hit the HTTP history, this is where those things start to fall into. Any request my browser makes will be under this proxy tab under the HTTP proxy subtab. Okay. You can also see stuff in Target, which will show up here eventually. But let's go make a request so that we can see that kind of stuff happen. I don't need the settings right now, so I can close that. I will make this request of, let's see, we'll do the old admin, admin, and what we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a very common password, which is sad, but is true. Then I'll hit log in. You'll notice I get right here. I don't see any craziness when it comes to my browser experience. But if I go back to BurpSuite, oh, look, I now have something that has fallen into the target. Excellent. And if I go to the proxy tab and I look at that proxy history tab, oh, look. And you can see all the kind of stuff that we were just looking at. Like it's a post method. There's the URL it went to. There was the status code. It's an HTML, and it has an extension of PHP. It has a title. It's got all sorts of stuff. Here's the actual requests that were made, right? And if I want to, I can look down, and right here, right over here, it's going to show up. So let me full screen this. I'm going to highlight this area right there. And there is your post data. You see login, admin, password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, security level equals 0, form equals submit. All right. Those are the elements that we need. So we can either get it through the dev tools or we can get it through something like BurpSuite. I highly recommend using something like Foxy Proxy, which is just a little extension add-on for your browser that makes turning the proxy settings off and on really easily, or real easy, should I say. I'll leave that to you. I won't go down that rabbit hole. I've shown you how to do it manually, so you can do that. It's going to be similar for if you're using a Chrome browser or Safari or something. You have to find the proxy settings. Little Google foo will help you with that. Find those proxy settings, and then for the HTTP proxy, put 127.0.0.1 and the port of 8080, and that will let you connect to BurpSuite. So now that we have those elements, login equals admin, password equals whatever we make the password, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we have the security level of 0, which was a part of the form that we saw right there. It says set the security level. You have a drop down. So that is also post data that is going to go along with it. We just want to keep it at 0 now, so low is fine. 0 must be equal low. And then we have a login button, a submit button there. All that stuff shows up right there in this request. This is that request. And I have that information in this post data format right along there. And then you can see it in the inspector right there. So selected text shows up. And I love that about BurpSuite as a very nice feature of that tool. Now that we have that, we can make a post request. Well, but we got to know how. How do we make the post request, you ask me? Great question. If you've stuck with me this long, you want to know the answer to that. And I know we're already at like almost 22 minutes. What are you going to do, right? Had to know how to do this so that we can make this post request using Python. So where are we going to go? We're going to go back to the documentation for that. I am going to, now that I have that, I am going to turn off the proxy. I don't need the proxy right now. So do the exact same reason, right? Go to the settings in your browser, find, the proxy, and then just go to use the system or no proxy settings. All right, I'm going to hit OK. That way I'm not continually collecting information in BurpSuite because I don't need it. I got what I need from BurpSuite. Okay, so going to here. You remember this fun page. This is the request.readthedocs.io page. And if you are at the very beginning of that, right, which was this page, right, requests for humans. I just have it blown up really, really large. You scroll down. There is a link under the user guide for make a request. And in here is where we got the whole request.get business. And that was simple. It wasn't too fairly difficult. But we also have post requests. Yay, post requests. That's what we need to do. And good news, it's not that bad either. Ours is going to look a little more filled out than this, a little more complex, but it's really not too much. So anyway, once you figured out the way it works, it's fairly easy. So we've got this request.post, open parentheses, close parentheses, and inside of that, of course, we have to give it a URL. And then you have this data equals and then a curly brace. And inside of that, we have separated values, right? It's colon separated values. And you have a key and you have the value. So it's like a key pair value, should I say more properly? And it's just separated by a colon and a space. So whatever you want the key to be, it's fine. You can make it anything you want. And I think that's one of the things that can be really confusing about when you're learning a programming language or a scripting language is things like this, when it's like, do I use the word key? Is that what I do? And then I give it a value, or how does that work? Basically, this is just one of those things you got to pick up as you go. So you're picking it up now. Hey, welcome to the show. Key is kind of like a label, right? It's almost like a variable for this data to pass along, right? Here's the name of it. Here's a label for that. It's just not going to be different. We're gonna name what it is. Give it the value of what that is inside of that label. So if I have, username, here is the value of that username, which is this, right? So the key becomes whatever we saw over here, which is going to be, looks like login, right? So that's the key. and admin or whatever username which we want to use. B would be the correct username. Admin was the one we tried. That will be the value of the key, which is login. That is about as well as I can explain that. And hopefully that is making super sense to you. You're going, oh, and the light bulb moment is going off. You're like, oh, yes, I finally get it, because I've been there myself. I'm like, I do not understand what you were talking about. It's making me very frustrated. So hopefully that made sense to you. Key value. So we are going to have to make a key value of login and admin. We're going to have to make a key value of password and whatever we want the password to be. We're going to have to make a key value of security level and a number. You will use 0. The value will be 0. We'll also have to make another key of form and submit. So all that stuff is going to go in our Python code based off of our documentation here that shows us that that's how it works. So we need data and equals, and then curly brace, or open curly brace, close curly brace, and inside of that's going to be our key value pairs. And we will separate. It doesn't show you that here. I think that it should, but it does not in the example. They should have done key 1 value, key 2 value, show you multiple key values, but it's just going to be separated by a comma. That is a standard practice in Python. So now we can do all sorts of fun stuff now that we know how post works. We get to go to the code. It is code time. 26, almost 27 minutes. And I'm so sorry this is so long, but it's just, there's not a lot of way around. I could have broken it up into a much smaller chunk, or little small chunks, but then I don't know. I felt like this was the best way to go. Sometimes you just gotta strap your helmet on and go, well, I'm gonna shoot me out of this cannon. I don't care. Okay, so let's get to the code. There is our code. This is from the last episode, right? We gotta make some changes. How do we make these changes? Well, this is all the same, right? None of this is changing. We still need to take the input from the user in some way, shape, or form, either directly by using input or from a command line argument. So none of that changes. The only thing that really changes here is this. We're not doing a get request. We are doing a post request. So it's post. Now, the cool thing is that target URL variable is still good to go. That's still money, because we're taking that from either the command line or from the input. And since we're not baking it in to the code, we can leave it that target URL variable. We don't have to put quotations around it or anything like that. But I will need to put a comma, right? And then space, because, hey, guess what time it is? Data equals open curly brace, close curly brace, booyah. And inside of that is going to go our key value pairs. All right, so one of the things I like to do, and is another good reason to know how to get at this stuff, is I'm just going to copy this. And I was like, Daniel, copy pasting gets you in trouble. Yes, I know. Yeah. Oh, and fun fact, BurpSuite does not like copy things from time to time. So a Control C might be on the menu, or you can try to like do it over here in the request form. Right click, highlight, and then copy. But if you're over here, it did not let me copy it, at least not very easily. So you might have to do it that way. Just FYI, if you're in your DevTools, you're good. You hit that raw button and you can just copy and paste that. So let's copy it, stick it in the code, paste. And we're just going to make some modification. This keeps us from having to do a bunch of typing, right? All I'm going to do is kind of come through here. I'm going to remove this, and then I'm going to put form. Actually, you know what? I am going to do a lot of typing. So I'm going to Control Z that, Control Z that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this out right to there. Cut it out. There he is again. He's back. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this information in a comment. Control V. There you go. Look at that. So now I have all that information right there in front of me, and I can even label it post data equals bada bing. Reminding myself and anybody else that looks at this code what this actually does. All right, so let's make some key value pairs. Let's get to work. So I've got a key of login, and I put a colon, a space, and then a value of something like admin. Excuse me. Like that. Give it a comma, space, Make another key value, right? The next one is going to be password. All right, let's make password. Don't forget your it's single quotes or double quotes. I think both work. So we'll say password, close it, colon space, and then whatever we want it to be. And we can try same that we had there. 1, 2, 3. I'll just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost forgot. Do need to put some quotations around that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And then we do a comma and a space, another key value, which this time it will be a security underscore level. Cool. Don't forget your. I'm horrible about that. Security underscore level. If you're like, what are you horrible about, Daniel? I'm horrible about remembering putting my single or double quotes around my values there, my key. Colon space, and then the value will be 0 with a quote around it. Hopefully that's all going to work. We might have to change that too. That's like a string type. We might have to change it to an integer. We'll see what happens. And then we give it a comma. Testing is fun. I love to test live in front of you. And our last key value is going to be form and submit. So we're going to put form. Don't forget your single quotes around that. Colon, space, single quote, submit, single quote. Woof, that is a lot of work, but time to save. And remember, hit File, Save As. We will name this brute force -v5 and save. We have now saved this as brute force v5. And hopefully, if everything goes well, we should get a response status code, come back. And I think, as we saw before, if we look in BurpSuite, that response code should be a 200 right there. So we should get a 200 back. And that means everything went well. It did the thing. If we don't get any other errors, we might get an error that we were unforeseen, but hey, we're going to try it. So let's jump over here. We now have the whole brute force 5.py. I'm going to chmod +x brute force -v5.py. That way I can just // and run that v5.py. And I'm going to run it just like this. I'm going to have the input taken from the end user. I'm not going to put a command line argument. Everything is running so far. We like this. We like what's going on. I'll put in the web URL, which is http://192.168.1.163 for me. You put in whatever yours is, /bwap/login.php. Fire it off, and oh, look, we got a response code of 200, just like we should. Now, that raises a few other questions. A, we still have to test to make sure that the command line argument is still working, which it should. I'm fairly confident in that is going to be the case. But we also have to start taking a look at, if I put in a bad username and password and I still get a 200, how do I know? Because I'm going to get a 200 as well if I get the right username and password, right? So let's try that. Let's see. Let's test that theory, shall we? Let's go to the code. Let's change the login to B and the password to bug, because we know that is the password and username. Control S that. We'll run it again. This time we'll also test the command line argument issues here. Let's see here. 192.168.1.163/bwap/login.php. And oh, look, I get a response code of 200. So that's going to be something we're going to have to overcome as we move on. But man, we did learn a lot, because we spent a lot of time today in messing around with web stuff. You learned a lot of web stuff today. If you've never played around with web stuff, maybe you're going, oh man, this is so overwhelming. And that's cool. The good news is this is recorded. You can watch me on double speed. You can slow it down and watch Drunk Daniel at 0.75. I'm like, welcome to URLs. And it's a lot of fun, by the way. It will make you chuckle. It's so much fun. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But we did learn a lot about the post method, right, for HTTPS or HTTP, what we can do with that. We learned about proxies. We learned about dev tools in the browser. We learned about post data and what goes on there, that it's actually passing data along as information to the server on the back end. The back end server grabs that and utilizes it for things like logging in, right? We learned the request.post capability in Python. So much fun. Everything seemed to work for us. We didn't have any issues. Key value pairs, we learned a lot about that. Man, today was a very busy episode, chock full of information. I'm sorry if it's too much for you. If this episode was a torrent, I just didn't feel like it would suit anybody breaking it up into little bitty chunks. I wanted it all to be together, if that makes sense. And hey, maybe I was wrong, but hopefully I was right. Hopefully this helps you understand all those things, or at least gives you the jumping off spot to investigate further into those topics that we looked at today, giving you further understanding of web. Whew. Thank you so much for joining me today. Join us in the next episode when we actually start to work with things like lists and see what we can utilize with that for actually doing the brute force stuff. It's going to be fun. So you got to come and check that out. Until then, kids, keep hacking.